Hi, everyone. It's Jackie Martin with A Matter of Motivation and Be More Learning and another pop-up positivity. So excited today because I have an opportunity to talk with Deborah Reuben. Deborah and I are new friends. We actually met recently in California. We're both professional speakers, and she is amazing. I can't wait for her to tell her story and to share with you a little glimpse at tomorrow. You're gonna know what that means in just a second. Deborah, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. Tell us a little bit more about you.
Sure, Jackie. Thanks so much for having me. I'm Deborah Reuben, and I came up as a technology strategist. I have a background in application development, but I spent a lot of my career in the commercial equipment finance industry. And so it's an industry that a lot of people haven't heard of, but any business that you go into needs to use specialized equipment to make that business happen. And so this is the industry that finances that equipment. So it makes business happen in our country. And so I do a lot of work with finance companies, software companies, and associations around technology, innovation, and future. And so my business is Tomorrowzone, and we're all about helping business leaders to really think differently about technology and innovation and really think about new possibilities for the future so that they can make better decisions about the actions that they're taking today to be ready for that future, to avoid irrelevance and all of that. And, we're surrounded by disruption today. So I think it's so important now more than ever to be thinking this way.
Well, Deborah, okay, so you come from this finance background, and that for all of my wonderful financial friends, that is usually not terribly like cutting edge out on that. That's usually pretty stable. And what made you kind of break out into this future thinking?
Oh my goodness. Well, I think I've kind of always been very curious about what's next, and throughout my life, I've always been forward thinking. And when you ask me questions that force me to have to think backward in time, I'm much slower than I am when I'm imagining what's possible. What's possible? So I'm always very excited about what's next. And I started to really pay attention to trends, and it's frustrating when you love to innovate and you're surrounded by those who are maybe a bit slower to adapt and to adopt technology and new ways of doing things. But I started to really enjoy helping people to stretch their thinking about technology and innovation. And so I got really involved in the trade association and volunteered quite a bit in the areas of technology and innovation, and really doing workshops and speaking and facilitating roundtable discussions to really get a sense for how people are thinking, and are they thinking ahead. And I was finding that they weren't thinking far enough ahead, and it was leading them to a place where they just weren't prepared to be able to respond to new market conditions and new customer preferences. And so I've developed some different methods for workshops and consulting and just helping teams to stretch their thinking about what's possible. We really dive in and understand what's going on in your current situation, and then let's stretch that and just explore the art of the possible a little bit and get outside of our normal comfort zone to see, maybe you're only looking at this or that. Maybe you only see two possible futures, but I can usually get a team to stretch to see 5, 6, 7, and it just really changes the way you think about things
Nice.
when you start to, explore a bit.
Well, it's okay. So you were being kind a minute ago when you said that people are slow to take on new stuff. So that's stretching. Do
Mm-hmm.
you find that, what techniques have you used to get people to move out of that comfort zone? Because don't
Mm-hmm.
you think that's one, what kinds of resistance do
Mm.
you find to it? And what have you done? Because I want to talk specifically about how you're helping people with Tomorrow Zone.
Yeah.
But what have you done to help stretch people's thinking?
So I do speaking for sure. My keynote really gets people stirred up, and usually they're like, oh my gosh, you need to bring this same talk to my boss and our board. And, you know, really looking at what's possible with artificial intelligence and blockchain and Internet of Things and virtual reality, and what does that mean for the business that we're in 5 to 10 years. Often we're just thinking about this year or next year. And right now, with so much change, we're thinking about this week, next week, and are we going to make our numbers this quarter? When we start to look at where things are going and we start to understand the rapid pace of change, and, you know, pandemic or not, the pace of technology change is not going to slow down. It's only going to get faster. And so, you know, there's a lot of resistance because often people are not comfortable around technology, or they think these are topics for the technology people, the people that traditionally they have in the back room, you know, and there's this unspoken rule that there's a separation between business and technology. But if you look around in the world today, technology is interwoven into everything that we do. And those lines are blurring more and more all the time. And so the way that I work with people is through the speaking, and that's kind of education and stretching your thinking. But then I also do interactive workshops, and pre-COVID, those were sticky note flinging, very interactive, face-to-face workshops where we were storyboarding possibilities for the future. We were actually trying out technologies, like having a whole group of senior leaders playing with virtual reality for the first time, and then imagining a customer scenario in 10 years using that technology. The other thing I'm doing is virtual workshops now. So using a lot of the great tools that are available to us today to be able to do collaborative and visual facilitation online. Mm-hmm. And then one of my favorite ways to work with people is through experience. And so my favorite story, and actually it was an inspiration for Tomorrowzone. I was doing some tech strategy consulting work for a large bank enterprise, and the CIO came to me and said, I would really love for you to work one-on-one with our CEO and help him to understand where these technologies are going, so that we can change the discussion about the future of our company at a boardroom level. And, you know, I knew that he wasn't that comfortable around technology and didn't have a lot of time. And, you know, when you're running a very large company, you don't have time to be in lectures or doing a lot of reading. And so I created a series of hands-on experiences. So we would get together, you know, about once a week for 6 weeks, and we would just play with the technology. So one day I, you know, met with them and said, today we're going to do virtual reality. This is Google Cardboard. And I introduced him to it, and we downloaded the app on his phone, and he tried virtual reality for the very first time. Another time, the meeting was a field trip, and I booked a test drive at the Tesla store, and he got to experience, you know, an entirely new experience for getting from place to place, semi-autonomous driving, but also the power of the radically changed customer experience for looking at and buying a new car because of technology, the new business model that it enabled. What is possible at the convergence of multiple advancing technologies like AI and robotics and new energy management capabilities, big data, machine learning, all of these things coming together to create that experience. And so, you know, through those experiences, I was able to say, you know, and don't pay attention to the car. Let's talk about what these technologies is making possible. Those experiences changed the nature of the discussions, because it was about taking these advanced concepts and not expecting somebody to be an expert in artificial intelligence, but to understand through tying it to our day-to-day lives and real-world application, to start to understand those capabilities so that it opens your eyes to the possibilities for the future. And so that's the way that I love to help people to to start to get comfortable around these things. Let's tie it to what you're already doing.
Right. Well, do you feel like the pandemic has in some ways kind of forced the hand of some of the maybe lesser technologies, but now people, just to be able to keep business rolling, had to embrace some things maybe they never had to before. Do you think that might have
Yes,
helped us a little bit?
absolutely. I actually, it's a serious situation that we're in for sure. But from a technology adoption perspective, this is accelerating adoption more than anything I've ever seen. I've been holding industry level roundtables with leaders, and a lot of them are saying, we had this technology already, but we couldn't get people to use it because they didn't have to. But they say necessity is the mother of invention, and necessity certainly accelerated the adoption of digital. We're starting to see massive adoption of e-signatures, for example. I mean, imagine the finance world. You can't expect somebody to go somewhere to sign a document to do a transaction when we are in a contactless society, basically. We need to start thinking digital first to do our business. We're seeing teams that are now learning how to collaborate virtually across Zoom and Microsoft Teams and other tools and techniques. And we're seeing one of the clients I'm working with right now is actually using this as a means to step back and reassess, because, when the world shut down, they had to stop certain processes. What a great opportunity now to say, which of these processes does it make sense now to restart or discontinue? Let's double check all of our assumptions about the relevance of what we were doing before our conditions shifted. And I just think it's a great opportunity to rethink how we do things. I know for myself, I had digital delivery on my roadmap for my business, but it was in the future. It was, when I get to it, that would be a good thing to do. Well, that's accelerated and I launched and I'm doing 100% digital delivery now. I can't be in the room with people throwing stickies on the wall, but we certainly can get together and be incredibly effective in a digital environment, doing something similar, but different and on another level. Because now think about the possibilities. So now when you're in the virtual world, you have access to all these new capabilities that you don't when you're together. So when you're together in a room, if somebody's on their smartphone or multitasking, that's probably frowned upon. But when you're all dialed in remotely and you're all in that digital space together, it levels the playing field. Nobody gets left out. Everybody's included and everybody's on the same plane. And now we can actually leverage that multitasking. Instead of saying, oh, I'll follow up with you later after I look up that data point, we can just say, well, you have access to that technology right now. Why don't you take a moment, look it up, and let's dive in further. And you can actually accelerate your collaborations now when you leverage the capabilities of the digital world. But it takes thinking digital first and not trying to take the way you work in the physical world and just paste it onto a digital environment.
Yeah, I think that's true. I love that. And I think sometimes human nature is to fight some of that
Mm-hmm.
until we're put into the situation where, I mean, I have so many people that I know in the beginning were saying, this can't be done. I'm not going to, months ago, this is going to
Mm-hmm.
be terrible. It's never going to work for me. And now don't want to go back to the
Yes.
old way. And it's kind of like a do-over, right? We have this opportunity,
Yeah.
just like you said, to decide what was we probably should have gotten rid of before anyway, and
Mm-hmm.
really embrace and adopt the new way.
Yeah. It's almost like we're getting a bit of an undo redo button for our life.
Exactly. Well,
Uh,
okay, so let me ask you this, because this is a little shift in, because I want to get about you personally. Now, you were just saying a
mhm.
minute ago that sometimes we want, maybe not anymore, because we have a level playing field right now, but
Yeah.
those IT folks or the technology whizzes, we kind of had in a back room, right?
Yeah.
But I also know that many of them were, there weren't many women
Mm.
classically in technology. So
Mm.
tell me what it is that kind of either attracted you personally, or how have you found things, are they changing? Are more women getting involved in technology? What are you experiencing?
From my standpoint, it definitely is changing. When I first got into technology, I started in banking. I started in, I didn't even know I wanted to be in technology. I kind of fell into it. I was doing foreign loan accounting and realized very quickly I'm not an accountant. But there was a computer in our department and nobody was using it. And I'm like, well, I think I'll see if I can figure this thing out. And I just took to it, and my boss encouraged me, and I ended up, taking all these classes and getting certified and doing projects and just like learned really, really fast. So I think following your curiosity is so important because you're going to learn faster and you're going to stick to it. And that's kind of what happened with me in technology. So that opened the door for me to get into my first technology job. And at the time, I was in a group that supported 1,300 users in a bank, and I was the only woman in the group. And it was kind of that way for a number of years as I continued to move up in technology. I typically was the only female, but that has definitely changed. I think just over the past 10 years or so, it's changed radically. And no longer am I the only female voice at the table. I think we still have a long way to go in different segments of the world. And for sure, even in the industry that I serve, there's definitely more work to do. But I think that there's a lot of awareness and a lot of intentionality around, making sure that we are including people of diverse backgrounds and experiences. I think diversity of thought is so vital for us to be able to truly innovate. If we're only sharing ideas with people who think exactly like we do, we're not going to move the needle one bit.
Yes, I totally agree with you. And I'm glad to see that for many reasons, our society seems to be trending toward acceptance of that, and not just acceptance, but really eagerly looking for ways to open up to let those diverse voices be heard. So let me ask you about trends. Since you're a trend master, what are we seeing? What trends are you seeing coming on our horizon?
Well, I am definitely watching this trend of this radically fast shift to digital. So when we started going through all these lockdowns in our country, just like everyone else, I was struggling with, oh, what do I do next? And our conditions keep changing, and it was really uncertain for a while. But I just started watching and really thinking, about what are the possibilities for the future. And I came up with 5 or 6 different possible future scenarios. And the thing that I'm thinking about is really related to what you were saying earlier, that, how some people may have resisted this remote and digital working style at first, but are now finding it's actually quite beneficial. And maybe what we will go back to is not going back to, normal or even a new normal. We're going to go back to different, and maybe we're going to see more of a hybrid approach to how we do things when we do get together, whether it's events or workshops. A lot of folks are considering having a hybrid approach to remote working, and many are saying, I would rather, go to the office occasionally, but still have some opportunity to work from home, and just finding that balance, I think is going to be an interesting trend to watch, to see how companies reemerge as we come out of the current situation. Also looking a lot at just this whole digital first mindset, because now that we have had to function in this contactless environment, how does that impact the way that we make purchases now, the way that we consume financial products, and the opportunities now for more financial technology ideas to come to fore, the way that payments are made. I think that there's a lot of opportunity for the status quo to change in a major way because so much has been disrupted. And I think it's going to open up new ideas for how we get things done. And we may see some interesting new business models coming out of this.
That's what I was thinking as you were mentioning. There are probably going to be some industries that, just like when the industrial age ended and we were much more technology based, whole industries kind of had to shift and change. And I'm sort of sensing that there are going to be some companies that won't be applicable as much anymore, or their way they're going to have. So I'm just, a lot of the people who watch what we do are students or emerging
Mhm.
professionals. And so what would you say trend wise those individuals maybe should be skilling up
Mhm.
for to match the need?
I think that one of the best things that you can do if you want to prepare yourself for the future is to develop the skill of learning,
Mhm.
continual learning, because technology is progressing at such a fast pace. You might learn something right now and it's only going to be applicable for a short time, maybe a few years. And so you need to develop the skill, develop that mental muscle to be able to continually learn new things. And really, learning needs to become a lifelong habit.
Mm.
And that's, I think, the greatest skill that you can develop. The biggest investment that you can make in your future is right between your ears.
Mm. That's brilliant. And I really do know that a lot of the education systems are trying to come up to speed
Hmm.
and providing things like STEM or STEAM or different
Hmm.
opportunities for students and of girls and boys to be able to move into areas that are
Hmm.
brand new. But I also heard one time they said getting a computer, IT degree almost doesn't make sense anymore. They said by the time you graduate, what you learned your freshman year doesn't even apply. So certifications and those types of things seem
Yeah.
to be really trending. Is that true?
Yeah. And actually, some of the larger companies are even, devaluing, like, the traditional degrees are not as important in their recruiting process. If you think about, we're surrounded by game-changing innovations. And so if you start to get curious about it, about, something that's going on, follow that curiosity, because we're also surrounded by enormous amounts of information and training tools and free learning materials and techniques. And I mean, there's so many ways that you can learn today. You're only limited by your imagination and curiosity. I have a professional colleague. In a group, I lead in a technology innovation working group for the equipment finance industry, and it's C-level and senior leaders from all different companies. And one of those leaders is part of a law firm, but he has chosen to embark on an interesting journey where he committed for 100 days. He's going to learn coding. This is a legal guy,
Wow, that's
but
innovative.
he's stretching his comfort zone, and he's decided he wants to learn about blockchain. And so he chose one of the programming languages, Solidity, and he's going for it, and committed. And every day for 100 days, he spends an hour on it. And really, that's all it takes. I mean, learning compounds over time. And so if you can find something that you're curious about, stick to it for a while, learn about it. And, if it's not for you, well, awesome. You can try other things. There are so many technologies and innovative concepts to explore these days. It's such an amazing time to be alive.
Well, okay, what you just said, you just said the key. I think this is pop up positivity on purpose, because I really believe that notion of this is a great time to, I mean, it has never been more exciting than it is right now. How do you stay focused and positive, even when there's challenges or hurdles to get over?
I think that it's really all about your mindset, and that's like building a muscle. Um, I choose I choose to frame situations as much as I can in a positive way. So even what's going on right now, I had to make a choice, just like everyone. I could choose to look at this as a nightmare and tune into all the negative news and everything negative that's going on and focus on everything that's bad. Or I could choose to look at this as the most amazing adventure. and start to get into curiosity and discovery mode. Who could I be on the other side of this? What am I going to learn going through this? What new things could I create? What am I going to discover along the way? And so if you can go into even a, tough situation with an open mind, you can come out of it on the other side transformed.
Yes.
But it's a choice. And I always say in my business, my tagline is make awesome happen. And I believe awesome is a choice. It's a mindset. I don't wake up in the morning to do mediocre. And so I think that's what helps me. I mean, stuff happens, but you're always in control of how you respond to it.
I love that. I love that about it being a choice. And I also love the fact that I've always believed that fear and curiosity can't be in the same space. Mm-hmm. And that even in a fearful situation, if you stay curious, then your mind goes to ooh and problem solving, mm-hmm. and it takes you in a different place. And so I love that.
Yeah, well, I know you follow John Maxwell, and I've been learning from him for a long, long time. And he said something one time that has never left me. And he talked about reframing the question and moving from asking, can I do this, to how can I do this, which has permission. You're not asking for permission. You're getting curious, and it changes your mindset. And even that simple shift changes everything.
Isn't that something? Well, I have another simple shift I want to ask you about, because I'm asking everybody this, and a friend of mine introduced me to this, and I'm just sharing it with everyone because I think it's sort of mindset transformational too, is that when challenges are coming, or when you hear people resisting to things, she shared with me, the question is, what if it's better? Now, I have a feeling this is where you live all the time, but because technology is supposed to do that. But I even had this little saying put on this little keepsake. What if it's better? When you hear that, what comes to mind for you?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's an awesome question. What if it's better? I love asking what if. And what if it's better is it kind of underlines how I think about the future, because if we are only watching the news or we're only watching movies, we might think that the future possibilities are only dystopian or negative. But what if the future could be better? What if it could be abundant? What if we could shape our future rather than just letting it happen to us? So yeah, awesome question. I think we should be asking that every day.
Well, and it sounds like for you to be helping people the way you do, either when you do your talks to a larger organization, or even in your one-on-one advising and consulting, that you're asking people this because looking at technology is trying to look at a better way. Is that right?
Absolutely. I was just working with a client yesterday, and we were in a planning session getting ready to kick off a workshop. And I've worked with this client for a number of years. Every year we take a wicked tricky problem and we get a group of people together in a ballroom, and we throw stickies on the wall and we hash it out, ask tough questions, work it out, and they walk out of there in a couple of days with a roadmap of what to do. And so they wanted to do that again, but now we're social distancing. And so, I'm doing it with them, but it's all virtual, and they were scared. And even as we were starting, they agreed to do it virtual, but we start the meeting, and the first thing I'm asked is, the leader of our company says that, we've got a room big enough and we can do a social distancing meeting, and we would feel more comfortable if we just all got together on site. And I said, well, that's not what we agreed to do. What if we just try this? What if you find out that it's actually more effective? Let's just try it. And, and then I just explained a little bit, of some of the ways that trying this in this different digital, everybody remote work style can be better. By the end of the first 90-minute session, she was lit. She was like, this is going to be so good for us. And I think we could even use it for other things. And I can't wait for the next session. So sometimes you just got to try it. Don't resist before you start.
Yeah, there's a pull to keep it the same. I don't know what that is, but
Mhm.
I think we're being tested on that over and over again. And maybe the more we're doing it and making it through it, the more we're proving to ourselves that the new way can actually be better and
Mhm.
frequently is much better. And
Yeah,
so I'm so glad you were here, Deborah. Thank you for being with us. Hey, tell
thank
us
you.
how we can get a hold of you. What's the best way for us to reach you?
You can find me at tomorrowzone.io. That's my website. And I'm also pretty active on LinkedIn. So Deborah Reuben, you can find me on LinkedIn. And yeah, that's the best way to find me. Just find me online.
I love it. I love it. I just thank you so much for being a part of this. You
Yeah,
and
you
now,
bet.
I mean, I would love to go into a brainstorming session with you. And I loved that we could
Anytime.
problem. I love it. Thank you so much for being here, Deborah.
You're welcome. Thank you
And
for having me. Have an awesome day, Jackie.
thank you, you too. And thank you all for being here too. Appreciate you. And here's another wonderful episode of Pop Up Positivity. Make it a great day.